Hey everybody, welcome to the Conscious Love Show. Whether you are single, you are in a relationship, or you're healing a broken heart, this show is here to inspire you, to remind you how beautiful, lovable, and amazing you truly are, and to give you the practical tools and insights to navigate from wherever you are right now to the loving relationship that you so deeply want to have. My name is Shane Kohler. I'm a certified transformational coach and trainer with over a decade experience helping people release their trauma and open their hearts to love. I've delivered seminars all over the world, coached thousands of people through my online platforms and programs, and every week I'm coming straight to you with the hottest insights and the best teachers around, bringing you powerful resources and profound conversations to heal your relationship with love, dating, and yourself. I'm so grateful you're here, and if it's your first time, welcome. You can count on me to always show up for you with my very best and a commitment to learn and grow myself so I can serve you to my maximum ability. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. I've got some awesome things planned for you today. So without further ado, let's dive in. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Conscious Love Show podcast. Shane Kohler here. As always, pleasure to be on with you today. Look forward to diving in. I'm really excited about today's conversation. Today, we are talking about why you're not meeting the right person, and we're looking at 3 specific reasons. I've been doing a little bit of research lately and reflecting on this idea of, this weird paradox where we have more opportunity to connect in today's world than we ever have in all of human history. I mean, you can wake up on a Wednesday morning and pull out your phone and get on Instagram or get on Facebook or get on Twitter or whatever. And you can in 5 minutes connect with thousands of people. I mean, there's just so much potential for connection. Dating apps allow you to connect with hundreds of people literally right in your area within 5 minutes of your house. And like the potential to forge connections is greater today than it has ever been. There is more opportunity to connect than there ever has been in all of human history. And yet there's this strange paradox where even though we have incredible opportunity and potential for connection, it is harder than ever for people to forge meaningful connections with each other. The rates of people marrying statistically are dropping year by year by year. There are less and less people getting married. There are less and less people making babies. There are like more and more people remaining virgins until like much later in life. I mean, it's like the potential for connection is so great, and yet the actual connection that is happening between people is on a steady decline. And I find it fascinating, well, maybe also heartbreaking, right? That even though we have all of this opportunity, we struggle to leverage the opportunity in a way that leads to meaningful connection. And I think, if anybody's heard of decision fatigue, right? It's like if you have 2 options, it's pretty easy to choose one. But if you have 3,000 options, we get stuck in like, which one do I choose? And would this one be better than this one? And we wail. And like, it can be so hard to move forward when we have so many options. And I think that's part of what's happening today. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of arranged marriages. I think it's better when we can choose. And yet in cultures where they have had arranged marriages, it's interesting to look at how many of those marriages are actually highly successful. And people always talk about the abuse and the trauma and everything. But I mean, yes, that happens, but that also happens when we choose, like how many people are abused by partners that they choose, right? So like abusive marriages are not limited to arranged marriages. The abuse happens in all kinds of relationships. But when you look at how many people ultimately separate or divorce the person that they choose versus how many people separate in arranged marriages, most people in arranged marriages stay together. And yes, that's not always healthy, but a lot of those people are highly, highly satisfied. Now, again, I'm not saying we should all have arranged marriages. That's not my point. But my point is when we take the decision fatigue off of the table, right? When we take the limitless options that we have available to us off the table and we say, this is your person, you're with them for life, make it work. There's something that happens for human beings that they find a way to make it work. And their willingness to choose someone that they were partnered with and say, this is my person and I'm going to make it work with them, leads to much higher satisfaction. And I think something that we are missing in today's world is that whenever you meet someone, and this is the first thing I want to talk about, I want to talk about the illusion of unlimited options. And anytime we go on a date with someone, there's this idea that, well, yeah, this person might be okay, but I was on the app this morning and I found, I saw 20 other people that might be more attractive than them, or were living more adventurous lives, or made more money, or blah, 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 right? And so we're living in this world where nobody that we meet could possibly compare to the 10 million other options that are out there. And there's this illusion that no matter how great the person I find is or might be, or the person I'm on a date with, no matter how great they might be, there's probably someone better. And this, I think this is a mind virus. I really think this is a mind virus. I look at my grandfather, and my grandfather, look, he's a simple guy, hardworking man, provided for his family. He's an honorable man. He was never abusive or anything like that. He also wasn't the most enlightened person. I mean, he's you try to have a deep conversation with him, he can't really go there, right? He doesn't know about trauma. He doesn't that's the world he came from, right? Most of our grandparents or grandparents are like that. But I look at my grandpa, he was in the Navy, and my grandma got his information from one of her friends who had a boyfriend in the Navy. And my grandma started writing him, and they started writing each other back and forth, and they exchanged letters. And when he got home from the Navy, they met each other, they got married, and they had a 50 some odd year marriage together, right? It's because they weren't living under this illusion of, I could find someone better. They weren't constantly comparing each other to what they could have had if they weren't with each other. There was a recognition of I found someone, I'm happy with the person I'm with, and I'm going to commit to this person. I'm going to create a family. And that was the way the culture did it at that time. Now, I think there's something to be said for having more than one option. I look at my wife's parents, for example, and they're great people. And, they didn't have an arranged marriage, but they came from a small village in Portugal. And, while it wasn't arranged, there were 30 people in the village. So there wasn't really that many to choose from. Based on what I know about them, I wouldn't say that they're deeply in love with each other. And I think there is something to be said for finding someone that we can be deeply in love with. And that wasn't necessarily the case for them, or that wasn't necessarily the case for my grandparents. So I think having the opportunity, having the choice is a power. But with great power comes great responsibility, to quote Spider-Man, right? With great power comes great responsibility. And I think that a lot of us have assumed this power of having unlimited choice without assuming the responsibility that with unlimited choice, I also need to have deep humility. So I want everybody to think about that for a moment. We have unlimited choice. You get on a dating app, you could never stop swiping. There's always going to be someone else. There's always going to be someone else, right? No matter who you find, no matter how hot they are, no matter how attractive they are, no matter how much money they make, there's always going to be someone who's hotter, more attractive, could make more money, could be smarter, could be more funnier, right? There's always going to be someone who would be better in some respect. It doesn't matter who you find. There will always be someone who will be some better in some way, in some respect. And the opportunity to have unlimited choices like this has to be balanced with a deep humility. And that is something that is lacking in our culture. That is something that is lacking within us as individuals. That's something that, I think, again, I'm not advocating for an arranged marriage. I think it's wonderful that we have this opportunity to choose. But I think in an arranged marriage situation, and of course, there are toxic versions of that. I'm not saying they're all wonderful. But I think something that is in that is a deep humility. This is my person. And I'm going to surrender to this person, to this relationship. We need to bridge that gap somehow. It's not that we need to move to a village where there's only 30 people and we have to choose from one of them. But so how do we find that deep humility? Where does that deep humility come from? I think that deep humility comes from recognizing our vulnerability as human beings and recognizing that other people have that same vulnerability. Like when I want you to think about like how arrogant it is to constantly think that we need to find something or someone better. I'm going to challenge some egos right now when I say this. Who are you to expect someone better? I want to be delicate about how I say this because I don't mean that in any kind of a trying to tear you down way. But what I mean is, at the end of the day, all human beings have the same heartfelt needs, right? We need belonging. We need connection. We need love. We need companionship. We need to be understood. At the end of the day, all human beings have the same heartfelt needs. And what we need to be seeking in relationship is not someone better in all these different ways, but someone that we can relate with on these heartfelt levels. And the arrogance to think that we should always be looking for something better is fundamentally inhuman. It's fundamentally inhuman. There's a disconnection from our humanity in that. It's driven by ego. And as we go through these different reasons today, I'm going to touch more into what I really mean when I say that. Who am I to think that I need someone better than someone who could love me, honor me, appreciate me, show up for me, be consistent with me? And so the first thing we need is we need to be humble enough to responsibly handle all of the options we have. To responsibly handle the amount of choice we have available to us. To not let the fact that I could potentially find someone taller or smarter or more attractive or who makes more money detract from the fact that I could forge a heartfelt, deep connection with the person who's right in front of me right now. So that's the first thing. Now, a lot of you might be saying, like, so what? Am I supposed to lower my standards? And there's this big, in our individualist culture, which is a relatively new thing, right? Our individualist society is a relatively new thing. Like just not even that long ago, like 100 years ago, we didn't have an individualist society. There was a certain consciousness that we existed as part of a whole. We existed as part of a unit. And by finding our place and our belonging in that unit, we could be fulfilled. We could have a life that was fulfilling for us, and we could make a significant contribution to the overall whole, right? Like if I find a place where I belong and I can do my service and my practice within that unit, by the unit, I mean the overall society that I'm part of, and I can find maybe a marriage and a family, and I can love my partner, and I can raise children, and I can do my job, whatever my job is. And like, I can find my place within the greater whole, and I can contribute to that whole. That there's a holistic relationship that I have with all the facets of my life. And something that emerged from that is this idea of individualism, where it's no longer about finding my place in the whole and contributing to the greater unit that I'm part of, but it's about my satisfaction, my happiness, my joy, getting what I want. Now, similar to what I was saying earlier, I don't think that's inherently bad. I think there was a lot of potential for certain destructive things to happen when someone subordinates themselves as only a part of the whole. I think there can be destructive elements to that too. But when we ostracize ourselves from the whole, and now we only see ourselves as an individual, and I'm only concerned with my happiness and getting what I want, there's a disconnection from the reality that me pursuing what I want has a greater impact on everything. And that's something that the individualist philosophy doesn't really address. And what we find is actually that pursuing what I want only with no greater awareness, with no complement to that, is actually narcissism. Right? Pursuing what only I want with no complement to it, with no balancing of it. That's narcissism. And we wonder why we have so many narcissists in our culture today. This is why. This narrative, this social narrative of chasing my pleasure, my happiness, without any regard to how that affects anyone or anything else, breeds narcissism. And so again, individualism isn't inherently bad. I think it's a beautiful thing when we can say, okay, yes, I have a position within the greater whole, and I recognize that my thoughts and my actions and my behaviors and the things I do have an overall impact on the greater whole. I can recognize that. But I also recognize that I shouldn't completely subordinate myself and my desires and my dreams and what I want to only contribute to the greater whole. But there should be a way, like a place that I can find, I can position myself within that whole that also allows personal fulfillment. And balancing these two philosophies is actually very responsible, is actually very compassionate. So it's not that we should lower our standards, but I think we need to refine our standards. In fact, a lot of what our standards are actually not that high to begin with. And this is the second thing I want to talk about today, is that we have unworkable standards. We don't have high standards. How many of us, when pursuing someone who apparently has our standards, end up chasing someone who's abusive? or pursuing someone who's toxic. And then we call that having high standards. Those aren't high standards. Those are unworkable standards. I remember there was a guy I was coaching a while back, and he said this to me. He was like, I probably shared this on a podcast before, but he said this to me. He's like, I get that I should be looking for like emotional compatibility, and I get that I should be looking for like a deeper relationship, and I get that there are more things to look for beyond the physical. I get that. But he's like, I just can't help it that all I'm attracted to is like the South Beach blonde with the bikini body and the big boobs, and that's all I'm interested in. He's like, I just can't help that. And this is what I said to him. I said, I hear you, and you're not alone. He's not alone. And women have their own version of that. Ladies, don't pretend like you don't. But this is what I said to him. I said, have you noticed that look, that South Beach blonde with the bikini body and the big boobs, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. If that's who you are or who somebody is, there's nothing wrong with that. But I said to him, have you ever noticed that look tends to come with a certain kind of personality? He said, you know what? I've never thought about it like that. And I was like, have you noticed that somebody, and I think we should all do our best to be attractive. Like when we're talking about dating, like we should all do our best to look nice, do our hair nice, dress nicely, like smell nice, like go to the gym. Like I think that's just something everybody should do. It makes yourself more attractive to other people. Like it is polite to the people that you're dating to give them a good experience of you. Like I think everybody should do that. But I think there's an extreme version of that, right? There's an extreme version of that where somebody goes so far, putting so much emphasis on the physical that they neglect the other aspects of themselves. Try to have the perfect body, the perfect hair, the perfect, whatever. And I become so focused on the physical that I neglect the other aspects of myself. And this is what I was talking about when I said this to him. I said, have you noticed that look generally comes with a certain type of personality? He was like, yeah, you're right. I've never thought about that before. And I was like, you see, that look is not just a look in the extreme version of it. It's also a value system. And, I'll give another example. The number one, statistically, the research shows this, I'm not making this up. The number one attraction factor for women is height. And I mean, I don't think any woman would really even argue with this. Women are more attracted to tall men consistently across the board. And, there are two parts to that, right? There's the evolutionary component where, for hundreds of thousands of years, a woman would need a large man to protect her from wolves and coyotes and lions and things like that. So there's the evolutionary aspect to it. There's also the societal conditioning aspect to it, where we grew up watching Disney movies, and on every Disney movie you saw, the prince was taller than the princess. And in every romantic comedy you watch, the man is taller, right? So there are these two aspects to it. There's an evolutionary aspect. There's also a societal conditioning aspect. But this is the number one attraction factor for women, is they're attracted to tall men. And I want to say this for all the ladies who are listening. A man being tall has zero implications in terms of how good of a partner he could be. Zero, none. In fact, this is obviously not true for all tall men, but it's something worth stating. is that tall men get 10 times more the attention from women than short men do. And so a tall man is more likely to undervalue a relationship with a woman because of the ease through which it has come to him throughout his life. Again, I'm not saying this is a fact for all tall men. I know a lot of tall men who are wonderful, honorable, incredible men. I'm not saying it's a fact, but I want everybody to consider this. Because of the ease with which he has gotten feminine attention throughout his life, he is more likely to undervalue feminine attention. Whereas a shorter guy who has gotten less feminine attention throughout his life might hold it in higher value. So we've got to rethink what our standards are. We've got to rethink what our standards are. Am I dating somebody because they're tall? Am I dating somebody because they have big boobs? Or am I dating somebody because they can hold an intelligent conversation? Because when I share something vulnerable with them, they are able to receive that and hold that. Another statistic about men and women is women generally want a man who earns more than her, who makes more money than her. Again, the amount of money that a man makes has nothing to do with the quality of a partner he could be. Now, ladies, I want to be clear when I say this. I for every single woman out there, you should not financially support a man. Hell, fuck no. You know, if the two of you are in a committed relationship and you know you're planning on being together for life and he's going through some transition where he's making a career shift or something like that, and you make an agreement that you're going to financially support the household for a period of time while he goes through this transition, or if you're raising children together and he's a stay-at-home father, that's a different story. Okay, like that's a different story. But in the early stages, a woman should never, ever, ever financially support a man. But let's balance that. She also shouldn't need him to be more financially successful than her, especially in a world where, especially in major cities, this might not be true, you know, in the middle of Kansas, but especially in major cities where a lot of women are now making more money than a lot of men. You know, if you have a woman who's working as some kind of corporate executive or working in a, she's a doctor or she's a registered nurse or, you know, and he's a construction worker, she might make more money than him. There's a woman named Allison Armstrong who, Allison Armstrong, if you've never looked her up, you should look her up because she does incredible work on really understanding the nuances and the dynamics between men and women. Allison Armstrong said something, and when I heard her say this, I was like, yes, this is it right here. And what she said was, I don't care how much someone makes, but I don't want a partner who needs my money. And I was like, that's the line right there. That's the line. It's not about how much someone makes, but I don't want someone who needs my money. And in the work that I do, for anyone who's done my challenge or worked with me in my program, something I like often talk about is individual wholeness. And to the degree that we have individual wholeness, we can create a relationship founded in wholeness. And so something that I think is part of individual wholeness is two people coming together and having their finances handled. So when we get together, I'm not trying to get my hands in your wallet and you're not trying to get your hands in my wallet. we're good. We got it covered. And our relationship, money doesn't have to be an issue in our relationship because you don't need any money from me and I don't need any money from you. And so we can focus on the emotional compatibility there. Hey there, listeners. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you really prioritized your mental health? If life feels overwhelming, stressful, or just plain chaotic, I've got something that could truly make a difference. I want to introduce you to Aura, the #1 app for emotional wellness. Aura offers personalized mindfulness and mental health support that fits your life. Whether you're looking for guided meditations, soothing sleep sounds, life coaching, or breathwork exercises, Aura has something for everyone. The best part? It's tailored specifically to you. Aura learns your preferences and creates a daily routine that supports your unique emotional needs. Now, here's the exciting part. As part of my podcast family, Aura is giving you an exclusive 7-day free trial. That's a full week to explore their library of thousands of wellness tools and discover what works best for you. So take this opportunity to reset, recharge, and show up for yourself. Head to the link in the show notes right below wherever you're listening to this podcast to claim your 7-day free trial. Don't wait. Your mental wellness is worth it. Let Aura help you find peace, balance, and clarity right at your fingertips. Go ahead. Try it today. You deserve it. If you've ever felt like you're stuck in the same painful patterns, questioning why love feels so hard, or struggling to find the deep connection you know you deserve, there's something I want to share with you. The Inspired Love program is an 8-week journey designed to help you break free from toxic cycles, heal the wounds of your past, and prepare yourself to attract and sustain the conscious, fulfilling love that you've been searching for. This isn't just another course. It's a deeply personal experience that will reconnect you to your inherent worth, clear the barrier standing between you and love, and help you create a solid foundation for the healthy, conscious relationship you've always dreamed about. Together in a small and intimate group, we'll tackle the deepest fears and insecurities holding you back and emerge on the other side, free to live and love in alignment with your highest self. Our next journey begins soon, and space is limited to keep the group focused, supportive, and intimate. Whether you're single, recovering from heartbreak, or ready to heal and transform your current relationship, this program will give you the tools, guidance, and connection you need to rewrite your story and create the love you deserve. So don't wait. Love starts with you, and there's no better time than now to take this step. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more and claim your spot in this life-changing program. I want you to be part of this journey because you're worth it, and the love you desire is closer than you think. So let's do this together. But what we often do is we say, I want the South Beach blonde with the big boobs, or I want the tall guy who's 6'5", or I want the person who makes X amount of dollars or drives a certain car or lives in certain social circles or has a certain status in some way that I value. And we go after that person, and we call that having high standards. Those aren't high standards. Those are superficial standards, and they're unworkable standards. We need to rework our standards. I want to share a story because, I credit my wife so much. This is gonna sound really arrogant when I say this, but I credit my wife so much for choosing me. And my wife's on with me today, so hi, babe. And I don't mean that in any kind of arrogant way, but what I mean when I say that is she could have easily not chosen me. She could have easily not chosen me because I'm short, because of where I was in my life at the time that we met. Like there would have been so many reasons for her to not choose me. And if we look at what we have created over the last 8 years together, we accomplished 3 years long distance. We moved, I moved across the country for her. We beat cancer together. My wife was diagnosed with breast cancer a few years back. We went through that, beat cancer together. We built our dream home together. My wife is now pregnant with our child due in July. Her lifelong dream finally coming true at 43 years old. Her lifelong dream of being a mother. Right? Look at everything we've created in the last 8 years together. And she could have easily said, no, not interested because you're too short or because you don't make enough money. And I'm just going to speak into this a little bit because like, this is real. When she met me, some of you are going to laugh at this. And thank you for the congratulations. Thank you so much, everybody. Some of you are going to laugh at this, but this is real. We often joke that when I met her, I was living in the doghouse, literally a doghouse. So here's the story behind the doghouse. I was living in a doghouse because I was getting my education to run these personal development seminars, which I ended up doing a few years later. I ended up traveling all over the country delivering these seminars. And I was, at the time, I had a dog and I was constantly traveling. I was taking flights. I was all over the place. I was in trainings for hours, sometimes till 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, like 3, 4 weeks out of the month. So I was never home. I had a dog. I needed someone to take care of my dog. So I asked this woman who was a friend of mine who ran a dog sitting service. Right. And I asked her, I said, listen, can I rent a room in your house? Can you help me take care of my dog? And in exchange, like, I'll help you with the dog sitting business when I have time. And so I worked out this deal with her so that I could travel, so that I could be in these trainings, 3, 4 weeks out of the month. And so that I could have all of this happen and have somebody take care of my dog. And this is where I was when my wife met me. I wasn't making a lot of money. I was in the middle of my education. I was living in the doghouse. Like, I kid you not. Sometimes my wife would come over to my house and there would be 20 dogs there. I remember we were out with some friends one night. We were out at dinner, and a buddy of mine and hers was there, and the conversation about the doghouse came up, and he goes, so let me get this straight. You have 20 dogs at your house right now? And I was like, yeah, I do. And so like, that was just where I lived. So like, I say all of this to say that there were so many reasons that my wife could have chosen not to be with me. And I wouldn't have blamed her. But then you look at what's happened over the 8 years we've been together, everything I just shared. Right? Like, I was also by her side when she went through cancer, when she went through her cancer journey. I recently heard this statistic, and this is awful, by the way. There is a 624% higher chance that a man will leave a woman when she's diagnosed with an illness than a woman will leave a man. So basically, a man is 624% more likely to leave if she's diagnosed with a serious illness than a woman is when a man is diagnosed. Now, that's awful, and I'm not justifying that or anything. But my point in saying that is my wife, and I give her so much credit for this. She was able to look past what was on the surface and connect to the individual that I was. And I was the kind of man who would stand by her when she went through that journey. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm really not. Like, I'm not tooting my own horn here. I'm not even going to say I did it perfectly. If I could go back and do that whole journey over again, there are so many things I would have done differently. So many things I would have done differently. I didn't do it perfectly. I wouldn't even say I did it well. But what I'm saying is that she was able to look past what was on the surface and look into the qualities of my heart and decide if I was the kind of man that she wanted to be with. And I think that is something that we are losing in our culture. When no matter who we meet, no matter what they're like, oh, there's probably somebody better out there. When we have these unworkable standards, they need to be tall, they need to make a lot of money, they need to have big boobs, they need to have the perfect body, they need to fit in certain circles, they need to have, be cultured in these ways or whatever. I mean, the list goes on and on and on with the unworkable standards we have. But really, like, deeper questions become like, can we work through challenges together? Can we work through a challenge together? Can we communicate? When I bring up a difficult conversation, can this person hear me and listen? When I want to do something, like, are they open-minded? Do they have an interest? Like, when I express a need, do they have an interest in meeting that need? Something that my wife has often shared around this was she had dated somebody before me who maybe met a lot of these superficial qualities, right? Like, I think he was kind of tall. I never met the guy. I don't know, but I think he was kind of tall and had a good job and, like a lot of this stuff. And she dated him for several months and he wouldn't come visit her at her house because he didn't want to put too many miles on his car. He's like, oh, I have a lease and I don't want to put too many miles on my car. And here I am paying for my education, living in the doghouse, traveling and in trainings and all this stuff. And 3 weeks after we started dating, I was like, I'm gonna book a ticket and come see you in New Jersey. And she was like, here's this guy who lives on the opposite side of the country, struggling to pay for his education, like bending over backwards to have all this stuff work. And yet he's going to spend the time and money to come see me in New Jersey when this guy that I dated who lived an hour away from me wouldn't put the miles on his car. And I see this comment right now, and a lot of love and a lot of respect. There's no judgment here, but I'm challenging us to question our assumptions. So you say, I'm a tall woman and it's very awkward being with a short partner. Now, I'm not saying that you need to be with a short partner. It's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, can you be open-minded to what it might be like with someone who's different than what you would normally think you need? That's what I'm saying. Most of us, when we're on dating apps, we swipe left on a certain kind of person and we swipe right on a certain kind of person. There are certain things that we're looking for. And when we see those things, we swipe one way. When we see those things, we swipe another way. Could you flip that? That's what I'm saying. Could you start swiping yes on people that you normally wouldn't swipe yes on? And could you start swiping no on people that you normally wouldn't swipe no on? Could you be open to something that is outside of your typical standards? What we call standards. Because I'm going to say it again. How many of us pursuing what we say are high standards, right? I have high standards. I'm not settling. I need this and I need this and I need this and I need this and I'm not settling for anything less. How many of us, when operating under those standards, end up in toxic relationships? Or end up with people who won't commit to us? Or end up with people who are hot and cold and inconsistent and play games? What I'm saying is our high standards, or what we call high standards, are really not that high. And if we could come off of these superficial standards and start tuning into something else, if we could be open-minded to something that we wouldn't normally consider, what might we experience instead? And this leads me directly to the third point. So I'm just going to recap for those who are maybe just joining in. First point, the illusion of unlimited options. No matter who I meet, I could probably meet somebody better. Yeah, this person's nice and they're kind and they're consistent, but there's probably somebody hotter. There's probably somebody who makes more money. There's probably somebody funnier, probably somebody smarter, probably somebody more successful, probably somebody that my friends would like better. The illusion of unlimited options. Number two, our unworkable standards. I need big boobs. I need someone who's 6 feet tall. I need someone who makes more money than I do. I need someone who exists in certain social circles, who has a certain culture, who likes the same things I like. Are unworkable, superficial standards that have nothing to do with what actually makes a relationship work. The third thing, and this is maybe what it's all rooted in. I want to go back to the comment that I'm a tall woman and I can't date a short man, or it's awkward when I date a short man. And this is my question. What makes it awkward? And for anyone who might relate to this, I'm a tall woman, I can't date a short man, or any other standard, right? I can't date someone who makes less money than me or whatever, right? Any other standard. What makes it awkward? That's the question I want you to consider. Is it awkward when you're sitting at home together, snuggling on the couch? Is that awkward? Is it awkward when you're in bed making love? I mean, maybe the positioning of things could be a little awkward, but you can figure that out. So what makes it awkward? It is the idea of how other people will perceive it. That's what makes it awkward. What is it going to look like when I'm a tall woman and I walk into a party with a short guy? What are people going to think of me? And I want you to really think about what's happening under the surface here. She says it's a stereotype more than anything. Thank you. Thank you for being honest. It's a social construct that if I'm a tall woman and I walk down the street with a short guy, what are people going to think of me? They're going to think I couldn't find anything better. They're going to think there's something wrong with me and that's why I could only end up with a short guy. And we are literally afraid of what other people might think about us. Often people we don't even know or even care about. This idea that if I don't have a partner who looks a certain way and meets a certain criteria and lives up to these superficial standards, that other people are going to think negatively of me. I was listening to a podcast recently with Paul Brunson. If anyone knows who Paul Brunson is, he's a very successful matchmaker. Very successful matchmaker. He's been featured by Oprah and has, worked with so many thousands of people. And he said something really interesting. He said that, he would often have these guys come to him to matchmake, right? For him to set them up with women. And he would set them up with women, and these guys, they might have a lot of money, they might be really successful. And this is what he said. I thought it was so interesting that he said this. He was like, so these guys are usually what I would call late bloomers, right? And they're guys who are maybe geeky in school, and they were never good with women, and they overcompensated for that by, being really smart and really successful and making a lot of money in business and going to the gym and getting, really fit. And so, in school they might have been geeky, but now as an adult, they're like strong and they have a great body and they make a lot of money. And, they've overcompensated for that childhood of not being popular or not being attractive, but their relationship with women still hasn't changed. Underneath their, ripped body and all the money they make and everything, they still feel really insecure with women. And so they go to a matchmaker and they say, here, find the right woman for me. And what he says is, so I would set them up with women, and then, we would do like they would go on their dates, and then we would come back and we would do an interview and say, so what did you think of the person? And how did the date go? And he said, among this particular type of person, this late bloomer type of person, the most common complaint that he received is, she's really nice, had a great time, but what is it going to look like? Like, she doesn't fit whatever certain stereotype that I think I need to fit. And what is it going to look like when I walk into a party with her on my arm? And what he boiled this down to, and I agree, I see this in my work too. What this boils down to is a childhood wound, an insecurity, some feeling of inadequacy that comes from way, way back in my life, from when I was a child, from when I wasn't the popular one at school, from when, I got rejected by my first boyfriend or first girlfriend, or from when I was humiliated in class or whatever. The validation I didn't get from my mother or my father, whatever form it takes. And I'm carrying this wound that stems from way, way back in my life. And now I'm saying, I need the person who has the perfect body, and they look the perfect way, and they act the perfect way, and they're smart and they're successful, and they're all these things, because I need the person who's going to show me that I'm good enough. And when I walk down the street with this person, I need everyone to see us together and know that I was good enough to attract this person. And so the unworkable standards that I was just talking about, are essentially rooted in our own insecurity, our own feelings of unworthiness. I was talking earlier about how much credit I give my wife for choosing me, because she could have easily not chosen me. She could have said I was too short. She could have said I didn't make enough money. She could have said all kinds of things. And I honor how secure she had to be with herself to make that choice. We walk into a party, she's got her heels on. She's taller than me. Now, without her heels, we're about the same height. And how secure she has to be to walk into a party with me, and she's taller than me, and to not care about it. She's here right now. She just commented also because she's older. She dated someone younger than her. So the courage and the certainty of self it takes to choose a partner based on your personal values rather than the cultural values that you think you need to live up to. That is a true testament to someone's solidity in their own identity. And if you struggle with these unworkable standards, then I'm going to be honest with you, you've got to look at how secure you are. And this is what I want to say about this. I want to pose the question, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? Would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? And here's my wife chiming in. It turned out better than I could have ever imagined for myself. And thank you, love. That means the world to me that you feel that way. It really does. But would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? If you could have somebody who makes you truly happy in the most meaningful ways, and all you had to give up is what other people would think about it. All you had to give up was impressing other people or living up to some societal standard. Would you choose happiness? Or would you give up happiness to make other people happy? People who really don't give a fuck about your well-being to begin with. And let's take that one step further. How many of us have chosen partners based on those superficial values and been deeply unhappy with the result? I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've coached over the year who have come to me and they chose a partner because their family liked them, because there was security, because because they made money, because they could have a certain lifestyle. And they chose a partner for all these reasons. And then 15 years later, they're going through a divorce and their whole life is falling apart. Because they spent 15 years living a lie. I want to come back to where I started today. That what is really missing culturally, the biggest barrier, the biggest reason that we are not meeting the right person is because we aren't humble enough. We aren't humble enough to admit that I have vulnerable human needs. Needs for love and connection and companionship. Needs to be seen and held and validated. Needs of security and consistency. And I don't need the supermodel or the person who everybody's going to approve of, or the person who everybody's going to look at me and go, wow, you must be amazing because you're with that person. I don't need all of that. What I need is somebody who can honor and hold these sensitive, vulnerable human needs. That's what I need. We aren't humble enough to admit that or to allow that. And so we say, oh, there's always someone better. We say, oh, I could find somebody better. I could do better. We tear people apart. We say, they don't have enough of this or they don't have enough of that. And The reason we do that is because our own feeling of unworthiness or inadequacy is preventing us from allowing ourselves to be truly seen, from even allowing ourselves to truly see ourselves. And this is what I want to end with. That need that we have, that longing that we have for companionship and partnership and relationship, I think that underneath all of our ego games and all of our need to prove ourselves and all of our need to get this and get that and like everything, like underneath all of that, I think that need is the same for everybody. It's something we are born with, right? We come into the world completely helpless, and we are completely dependent on our parents or caregivers to meet our needs and take care of us. And yes, we get older and we get more responsible and we get to the point where we can take care of a lot of our own needs. And that's something that we need to learn to do. We need to become self-sufficient. But that deep feeling that we were born with of wanting that companionship, that person in our lives to share our heart with, to share our soul with, something that is fundamental to being human, that every single person is born with, that never leaves us. And if you have that, then you can guarantee that everybody else has that. And what we need to do to find the right person is be humble enough to see and acknowledge that within ourselves. And then because we can see and acknowledge it in ourselves, we can see and acknowledge that in someone else. And rather than judging them for it, we can recognize the sameness. We can recognize, oh, they're the same as me. They have that same vulnerable human need that I have. And when we can see that in ourselves and we can see that in someone else without judgment, without criticism of ourselves or the other person, we can actually open our hearts to have those needs be met. And at that point, it doesn't really matter what that person looks like. It doesn't really matter how much money they make. Within reason. As I said earlier, I don't want somebody who needs me for my money. Right? So they need to be self-sufficient to a degree. I don't want someone who has no regard for their health. So if they don't take care of their health in some kind of general way, that's not for me. I'm not saying that we have no standards. I'm saying that we have refined standards that speak to the core of who we are, that honor the core of who we are. And when we start to operate from that place, we will connect to the essence of ourselves, and that will allow us to connect to the essence of someone else. And that's how we find the right person. So I want to thank you so much for being in today's conversation with me. I know I challenged a lot of beliefs today, a lot of things that a lot of us cling very tightly to. Some of you who listen to this may have gotten triggered by some of the things I said, and I want to honor that, and I want to just send you some love and let you know that if it's triggering you, that's how you know it's true. If it's triggering you, that's how you know there's something here for you. Because when you get triggered, what's happening is your ego is saying, no, your ego is like digging its heels in and defending itself. That's how you know there's something here for you. So if this was triggering, I want to honor that. I want to send you some love. But I also want to say, explore what's underneath that trigger, because there's something profound here for you. Lots of love, everybody. Thank you so much for being on with me today. It is always a pleasure. I'll see you back here next week. Love and blessings. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Thanks again for checking out the show. Please subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on the most. And I would love it so much if you leave a review and tell people what you think of us. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram @The Living Relationship to connect more closely. And I'm grateful to be supporting you on your journey to love.